Well, with great anticipation, my viewers have waited, and we have a plain black bag. What could be inside it? Here's your hint. Really? I bet not too many of you recognize that logo. Let's find out what's inside. Stay tuned, guys. Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 25 October 2013. Coming to you this evening to reveal what I've been keeping a secret for the last few weeks. We got a little initial impressions video of something I think is going to end up being pretty special. And it comes to us from a German company called Pohl Force. Having sold some knives in Europe over the past few years, produced by Lionsteel in Italy, Pohl Force now has Pohl Force U.S.A., meaning they are selling, marketing knives here in the United States now, and have been for a year or two, I guess. This knife that we're going to look at tonight is, I think, to date, its best quality folding knife that is a reasonable carryable size. It's called the Mic 1. We'll get to the knife as soon as we dig through some stuff here. Pretty neat little bag or case, don't you think? Double zippers, lockable, paracord pulls. Nice heavy duty nylon zipper. It actually lays flat. Inside, what do we have? Well, we've got a little bottle of, this stuff's kind of funny. It says Pohl Force Extreme Force Weapons Oil. I don't know what's in here, but and I don't know what's in here, but it's pinkish red. It's a little thinner than what it looks like and smells like, but, and you know, Phil Cookson, U.S. Director of Operations, Marketing Director for Pohl Force. Don't shoot me for saying this, but it smells a lot like transmission fluid. Don't know what's in there for sure, but it's nice that they throw in a handy little bottle of lube with your Pohl Force Mic 1 knife. We'll set this up over here so we can see it. And we have a nice little sticker, some swag, some really cool swag actually. It says Euro Ops Division. The Mic 1 knife we're going to review tonight comes from the EOD line of Pohl Force knives. Pretty cool. You got a skull and a snake and a sword. I mean, cool stuff. That's a good looking sticker. And then this is really cool. It is a rubberized Pohl Force Velcro patch. Those of you who follow me on Instagram saw this stuck to my Maxpedition Fatboy VersaPack today. It's really cool. With a likeness of a Pohl Force fixed blade dagger. Neat. Also in the case is the certificate, spelled with Z's and K's. That's because it's German. And even the text is written in German. But let's see if we can figure it out. My serial number is 13-0657, which is, I guess, the 657th Mike knife built in 2013, and it was produced 21 August 2013, and I don't know, but I would imagine that is company owner and knife designer Dietmar Pohl's signature. Pretty cool. Now let's get to the knife. I think there's nothing there. The knife ships, of course, in this nice case in a plastic sleeve. And here it is, the Mike 1 folder from Pohl Force. As you can see, titanium frame lock, drop point with a beautiful swedge, G10 front scale or back scale if you're left-handed like me. Gorgeous 3D CNC machined pattern on both the titanium frame side and the scale. Interesting profile, don't you think? I think it's a little bit of a polarizing shape. When I saw it for the first time, it was during a review by my buddy Brian, Knife Guy, on YouTube. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh my, is that beautiful. And after having it in hand today, I still am saying, oh my, is that beautiful. It also ships with this length of elastic cordage, and this actually comes installed on the knife through the pocket clip fastener and then just tied in an overhand knot to use as a lanyard. I'll probably not use that, but I think some guys would. I've actually seen other Pohl Force materials that show that lanyard looping both through the pivot and this back post to sort of use it to secure your hand gripping the knife. Don't know if I'll ever do that, but it's pretty interesting. You know, in a knife of this price range, I think the fact that they include so much of this stuff is actually pretty neat. You know, it's not a $50 knife. It shouldn't come in a cardboard box, at least not a single ply cardboard box. And you know, you ought to get some cool stuff with it, I think. And in my package, I got this knife directly from Pohl Force, and I'll explain to you a little bit about how that happened here in a little. But they also included this brochure. Don't know if they're quite ready for marketing in the United States because most of it is in German, but it gives you a quick overview of their product line. Some fixed blades on this side, the November series, which is basically the Mike 1 and a fixed blade. And then the Romeo daggers. The Hornets, which are some very short, stout, fixed blade kind of neckers. And then the Mike 1, the Mike 2. The difference between the Mike 1 and the Mike 2 is the Mike 1 has this thumb disc for opening. The Mike 2 does not. I believe the Mike was first envisioned as the 2. Most European countries do not allow folding knives that can be opened with one hand. So when the Mike was then adapted for American consumption, the thumb disc was added. And we'll get to that in a minute, but it's not our normal deployment method, nor does it have our normal deployment action that American thumbs are used to. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. But neat little brochure. Gives you a really authentic European feel because it's not written in English. No biggie. All right, let's get to the knife. What do we have here? Let's talk about some dimensions and materials, shall we? Blade length in that gorgeous drop point with that beautiful swedge is 3.72 inches in length. And with the forward finger choil, about 3.5 inches of cutting edge. A gorgeous shimmering stone wash with the thumb plate I mentioned. Handle length is 4.9 inches. Gives you an overall length from tip to tail of 8.62 inches. Not a bad blade to handle ratio. Although, if you look, the tip does stop a little short of the butt of the knife, but the pivot is so close to the front end that it still gives you a good ratio. Blade thickness, check this out. Guys, that's 5mm stock. That's 196 thousandths, or a little more than 3/16 of an inch. But as thick as that stock is, the knife is not terribly chunky. And its handle thickness, I don't know, maybe what, 5/8 of an inch? not terribly huge. Pocket clip is a very sturdy wire clip, and it's reversible. Set up, as you can see, for my left-hand carry. Also goes equally well on the right side, on the TI side. They do not make a dedicated left-hand version of this knife, but, you know, my thumb is fairly used to disengaging liner locks and frame locks that are set up for the right hand, so no big deal for me. As long as they let me put a clip on my side, I am happy. One of the 2 or 3 reasons I really had a lot of interest in this knife. And we'll get to the other ones as we go. Blade steel is a new one on me, and although the knife is produced by our friends in Maniago, Italy, Lionsteel, it's not D2 and it's not Sleipner. This is a steel produced by Lionsteel of Germany, and it's called Nylox, or Loman's SB1. Pretty interesting steel. It doesn't inspire confidence when you go on Z knives and look at its composition. Nylox, it says, used by French and Belgian knife makers. Yeah, French and Belgian knife makers. And for you international folks, when an American hears it's used by the French and the Belgians, it doesn't exactly make us think ferocious tactical fighting knife. However, the French do know how to cook, so I imagine they know a little something about knives, don't they? Anyway, Nylox is kind of it has sort of a voodoo chemistry from my background. About 0.8% of carbon, 12.7% chromium, so not super high carbon, not a lot of chromium. Ought to be pretty rust resistant though, because with only 0.8% of carbon, the chromium should still be left free to do its job protecting from rust, because it's not going to form a whole bunch of carbides with the carbon. It's got 1.1% of vanadium. Ought to be pretty tough. And then the magical ingredient, 0.7% of niobium, which is supposed to give very fine grain structure and give this lower carbon steel the same wear resistance as D2, but I'm suspecting, since the carbon content is a little lower and there's a lot of vanadium in it, maybe it's a little more chip resistant than D2. We shall see. I don't know how it's going to hold up. I'll tell you one thing though, it takes a beautiful stonewash finish. Okay. let's look at this edge, because as you guys know, Lionsteel is not famous for putting on what I would call a very razor sharp edge. They like to finish their blades with a bit of a convex edge, well, it's just not super sharp. Good working edge, I'm sure. Durable edge, yes. Not very sharp. This knife came, I would say, significantly sharper than my SR1A. I would say it's copy paper sharp. It's not phone book paper sharp. It will cut you if you do this very long with a lot of pressure. Okay, let's talk about fit and finish a minute. And it's pretty doggone good, I gotta say. The grinds on the blade are super precise, well done, gorgeous. The facets on that swedge are absolutely perfect in their symmetry. The scale is integral to the backspacer. One piece of G10 forms all this. You cannot feel where the G10 stops and the titanium starts, the way this knife is put together. The seam is of course visible, but not able to be felt. It's really, really good. I mean, really good. Just look at the polish in the finger choil here. It's very hard to get a picture or get a view of the lock face on this knife because it's in an odd place. Just hard to see, but it's nicely lapped. Very, very well done. And this knife is tight, guys. As I always do, I take a folding knife apart as soon as I get it to get the factory lube out of there and clean out any debris and see what makes it tick. I'll tell you what, it's work to get this thing apart. First of all, the two main points of contact, the pivot and then the screw for the pocket clip, these are both identical, and they're a huge barrel pivot on one end with a male screw and the other. Actually, the barrel pivot's here, the male screw is here. The OD of the barrel pivot is between, it's really close to 3/8 of an inch, I guess I would say, but maybe 5/16, big. And they are press fit through this titanium. It's work to get them out. When you take this knife apart to clean it, you're going to work. You're going to need a punch that's a little bit smaller than the male screw to knock the barrel out. And in order to remove the screw, you're going to need this really high-tech, expensive proprietary tool to fit into that slot. Most screwdrivers are going to be too narrow to do it. You need a penny. Yes, a penny works perfect. I mean, perfectly. But super tight, super great fit and finish. I have no issues there. Typical to Lionsteel, you've got the nylon washer pivot suspension system. I am no longer skeptical of it. It works like a dream. This knife's 1 day old, not even. That blade is pretty darn free, and I got no side to side play, no up and down play, and it's not really even broken in yet. Of course, I did have it apart. Got the factory lube out of there. Put some Daiwa real oil from One All's Pub in this pivot when I put it back together. And man, that stuff works like a dream. I love it. Anyway, now let's get to the kind of difficult. I want to talk about this one difficult thing. This is not a knife that lends itself to being flicked open with the thumb. you're not going to get enough traction on that thumb disc in a conventional grip to deploy with your thumb flip. It's just not going to happen. You can sort of do it like that. It takes a little wrist and kind of a sideways move with your thumb on that disc. So for you Americans who think that's the only way to open a knife, it's probably not for you, but you can open it fast. It's about as fast as opening a Spyderco knife the conventional way. You know, just putting your thumb in the hole and taking it through the whole range of motion. Not difficult, but just different. Here is, other than the fact that it's a Lionsteel, it's got an ambidextrous clip, and it's really beautiful to look at. I really wanted this knife because of this. Look at the radial lock geometry. I mean, the lock face to blade tang is nothing new. You know, a huge radius arc on the blade tang, nice wide piece of titanium hitting it, get about 50% engagement, almost full engagement of the tie. Just the right amount of stick to make you feel secure about it. But this is the cool thing. Most frame lock knives that have a lock bar that comes about to the axis of the pivot and then straight up have really poor geometry. The radial geometry of that pivot hits that lock face at a tangent, causing blade roll as the blade roll, lock rock, whatever you want to call it. I call it blade roll because the blade actually moves this way along the lock face, because when the lock face becomes curved with wear. Look at this knife when it's open. The radial forces are going directly perpendicular to the lock face, directly down the full length of the lock bar. It's not pushing the lock bar this way, it's pushing straight back into it. I think that's going to make a very stable frame lock. Hard to tell because it's really a liner lock knife or has scales over a titanium frame. Very similar geometry to the Browse Division flipper, which I love. So we'll see how this does over time. Of course, we got the Lionsteel Roto Block, over travel stop, and lock. By the way, it does say Lionsteel way down here in the titanium lock bar relief cut. Can't think of anything I really hate about this knife yet. Blade centering's pretty good. It was actually better before I took it apart. Perish the thought. I think it's still just a little tight. It favors the lock side. So as it breaks in and loosens up, it ought to go right to the middle, I think. Just wanted to show you this, and rest assured there will be testing and there will be a more comprehensive and, let's say, discerning review. Right now it's just kind of a love affair I'm having with this thing. So stay tuned. More of the Pohl Force Mic 1 to follow. Well guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Go get some sleep, would you? Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the word is sharp.